A friend visited on the 26th of December 2019, and as she entered into the house, she announced the death of somebody who had been burnt to death in his garage in Gloucester, a Muslim male. And then she also announced the second death of somebody in Bristol, more local. I was naturally alarmed because the thing I was worried about took place, and it seemed as though my hypothesis had come true. I'm not saying 100% sure that it was linked, but if you can see that, you know, with the teeth and the job centre, work coaches bullying me, harassing me, trying to place sanctions on me at every opportunity, not taking into account the kinds of stunts that I have to deal with, it's not kind of a sort of unreasonable thing to enter one's mind that this is all organised by the same people. Now, I know some organisations, including the NHS trusts that I've been employed with, other organisations, the regulatory bodies of pharmacy for this country, and I'm sure departments within the government, they've been trying to make out that I'm pretending that I have a background in pharmacy. I assure you I'm totally kosher or halal. I'm not making this up. Have a look at that. That is my degree going back to 1998. And this is the training certificate that allows any third parties to know that you have actually registered as a pharmacist back in 1999, as I did. I'm not one at the moment because I need to re-register with the GPHC and I haven't done that. So I'm not claiming to be a pharmacist today and now on the 4th of February 2020, no. And this is the payment invoice for the £5,000 dentures. Okay, just glance at that. And yes, I am the patient. Some people might argue, and they've tried this, why did you not complain about the teeth immediately with the dentist whilst he was present and you were actually at his practice? Well, I did, and as I've explained, I didn't feel very comfortable having a row or anything like that. I've had to do that so many times, enter a debate and a discussion. Even about this time, I was being very badly harassed by the job centre, as I have been over the last few years. I've made complaints in written format. The Department of Work and Pensions claim that they've not received it because nobody's got back to me, special delivery. And again, I've telephoned, I've spoken to somebody. This person then organised for the manageress from the job centre in Stapleton Road, Eastville, to speak to me. With all sort of due respect to her, she's a female from an ethnic background herself. She did address the issue, but she didn't really see it through very well because the male who I'd complained about was one of her subordinates, a white male, and it could be that she didn't want to say too much to him because of the racist element. I'm under the impression that Cardiff University and NHS Trust employers have asked this chap to make things difficult for me because they had to have information about me, those organisations, and even if I didn't overtly hand them that information, they can find out for themselves. It's not difficult. Another male colleague of this one that I had to complain about was also kind of involved prior to this younger one. So I know it's organised. They're doing favours for their white male colleagues, CEO at NHS Trust, Barnsley Hospital, Cardiff University. I believe there's an involvement there. I think Mr. Graham Southall-Edwards has had a heavy involvement there. I can't say for sure. I know Barnsley Hospital has some involvement there. So anyway, when I finished with Job Seekers Allowance last year, whilst my father was very unwell in hospital, he's now passed away. He passed away last October, early 2019. May Allah, God, have mercy on his soul. And so that time was very turbulent for myself. I was being harassed. I'd had these 2 bogus implants placed in my mouth. It's ongoing, if you can sort of see that for yourself. I don't have to spell that out as well, I hope. When did I go? 11th of January 2019. I had to see somebody to sign on, and they made it very difficult for me to sign on, as though they didn't want my signature to actually be given on that date, so they could then claim that I'd avoided coming in, I wasn't coming in. Perhaps they were trying to say I had schizophrenia and I didn't know how to come in. I mean, I have to deal with these kind of attacks and attempts to kind of discredit my allegations, and sometimes they are really outlandish, but nonetheless the regulatory body, Mr. Graham Souther Edwards, people like that tend to want to hear things like that, and don't easily as they can just refute those types of arguments. He's a clinician himself, he's a pharmacist and a barrister, and he should know from his background that I can't have schizophrenia, and there's no need, no justification to try and send me to a specialist to verify what he knows is already the case, and that is I don't have it. I've been cleared by consultant specialists of any mental health issue in terms of a severe mental health problem. I'm on no regular medication, and I've never taken antipsychotics. That is the hard evidence which some are grappling with as I speak. Then I was bullied last year as well, 2019 September, and switched to Universal Credit. You've probably heard the news yesterday. Universal Credit has now gone into some kind of an issue. They've said that there's going to be delays with Universal Credit. I wonder what's going to happen. My last appointment on the 24th of January, despite my father passing away in October, and this being like the 4th month of his being deceased, my mother being a widow, and myself personally at a personal level having to deal with his demise, the job centre went up a gear in trying to place sanctions on me, and ignored the fact that I was in a grieving period, tried to trivialise this issue, and also tried to ask me to do a 35-hour job search, which is absolutely insane. Sure, you know, you're supposed to commit to a minimum. I've always been told 8 job applications minimum every 2 weeks, which I do try and adhere to unless circumstances are beyond me, such as I'm caring for my parents at home. I have to do a significant amount for them, so that does compromise matters, and I've tried to explain this. I've also managed to work in one of the warehouses in Bristol, but he admitted he didn't know about my work at this warehouse, and he didn't even seem interested. I feel like this poor man, an Asian male, was under instruction from white colleagues and other people who aren't really saying anything. On this occasion in September 2019, I was told I couldn't sign on, and the lady just said, well, my machine's broken. I said, well, give me a piece of paper then, because when the machine isn't working, we are always given a piece of paper. I mean, under no circumstances does anyone walk away not having signed on, when that's what we've come in for. That's why they call it signing on. And she just refused, and her friend was sitting next to her and was eavesdropping on the whole conversation and butted in and started supporting the lady who was being the work coach for me on that date, on that occasion. I found them extremely, how shall I put it, well, aggressive. They're supposed to allow me to sign on a piece of paper. In the end, she had to give in, but that wasn't the way to manage the situation. She should have just given it to me instead of saying my machine's been broken for 6 weeks. So why haven't you had it fixed for 6 weeks, and why are you lying as well? Look, I know you're under instruction, and it can get very nasty when you're in an organisation and your senior members force you to do things. This lady was asked to make me bring in identity to verify who I am every single time I come in. Normally, you're expected to bring in ID, such as a passport, at the beginning of a new application, not every single time. I know it's difficult to just say no, but that isn't in the agreement. You're not really supposed to do that, and you're not supposed to tell people not to sign on. I do realise there are horrible politics going on, and that's why I try and take the bull by the horns. It's more difficult for me because I have people doing these things in my face, and they do it regularly, and they've been doing it for 20 years. And you could say to me, it's easy to speak up and, just tell us, why don't you do something? Why don't you address your seniors? But I am in a position to tell other people because I have done it on my own. And that's why I do have empathy and sympathy, because I know it's very difficult. I mean, look at me, I've lost my job for doing this. I've spoken up. And my friend in London, she's lost her job and was put in a special hospital for people with mental health issues. So they do make your life very difficult. And if you're afraid of losing your livelihood, you should be. But surely there's another way of pursuing this. If I speak out, then perhaps that puts pressure on the work coaches to tell their senior members and outside instructing bodies to lay off and stop harassing myself or even yourselves and getting you to do things you don't necessarily want to do.